Hi friends, this is Riza with Full Awakening, and I'm here to bring you your weekly golden nugget. So it is almost spring, and we have a little bit of sound happening that I'm aware of. We have the dehydrator on one side that is dehydrating some bananas for my kids, and we have spring calling birds on the other side outside. There's something so wonderful about that sound, isn't there? The sound of birds, little tiny birds coming awake and getting excited about the spring. So it's definitely feeling like spring here in the Midwest where we are. We've have very wet, very warm weather happening, and it feels amazing to be able to feel the wind on your face and not feel like you're gasping for breath because it's so cold. So we've been enjoying that here. The reason I'm bringing up spring is that this reading today really has a lot to do with that spring energy. And as you know, we're about a week away from spring. I believe spring springs. The equinox is next Thursday, I believe. So we are very close, about a week away. And that feeling of that energy coming and approaching us, we feel it before it arrives. So here we are. What I usually do with these golden nuggets, I try to make it short enough that you can kind of take a little bite without it taking too much of a bite out of your day. And I do a reading beforehand with my council. So I work with a council of spirits called the Council of 17. They're my primary wisdom council that I travel with. And I look to them to give me a little nugget of gold to offer you guys, something to help you process the energies that you're experiencing this week. I often say when things are really big, when we're having really big experiences, they're often planetary and not just personal. So they're also personal. Of course, our personal circumstances are our own, but often when we're having challenges, especially, those challenges are linking us to other people as well. So here we are. The first thing that I do is I read the writing that I wrote from the reading that I did with my council. And then I'm going to read that to you and I'll explain a little bit more of the images and the fullness of the reading afterwards. Then we'll talk about any teaching that's imbued in that. And afterwards I will show you, I'm going to do it really fast. I have a tarot card that's going to be a surprise that I also did a tarot card reading. This is a different tarot card deck than I usually use. So usually I'll show you the back of it, but this one has a picture on one side and a description on the other. So I realized I can't really do that. Just so you know, it's here. So that's the thing that we finish with, is just a little extra nudge in the right direction with a little tarot reading. So here we go. This is the reading for this week, and we've named this this reading Stretching into Growth, which is a lot of that energy of that rising. So what does it mean to stretch and grow? How do we tell our story with truth and grace without the need to embellish or soften the edges? How do we respirate the process of focusing our intentions, our practice, our trajectory to break through from where we are, then onto the other side? Once we find ourselves in new territory, can we soften and stretch with open curiosity and wonder? Can we stay present? Committed to this very moment we find ourselves in, and also open, so open to all we may find that is new. Can we bring our curiosity back home to the ones we love? We are living a human experience, and the naked truth of this experience bridges all barriers. I did turn it on its side for a moment there, because I wrote on the side of the page. So interesting reading. A lot of questions. I've actually been noticing that more and more in the readings that I've been doing lately with other people's councils as well, is that there's more questions. And I like to think that questions are more important than answers. Answers change. Answers shift and alter themselves depending on our perspective and where we are in our life and our circumstances. But the questions really help us to come down into a sense of curiosity and exploration, which I think is really what life is about our ability to stay curious and stay exploratory about the things that we experience in life. Because the greatest learning, the greatest wisdom comes from direct experience. It comes from what we're actually feeling and experiencing in our present life today. So yes, there are a lot of questions in this. I want to describe the trajectory of the energy. So, you know, in this time of year, and it's starting even a little bit before this, there's flowers, crocuses and dandelions and various flowers that start to sprout out of the earth. And that sprouting energy, that sort of breaking through the shell of the earth and trying to reach towards the sun, is very much the energy that we're dealing with right now. That's the energy that's also moving through our bodies. We are part of this earth life. We are one of the many multitude of voices within nature. And so we're experiencing that on our own levels as well, this feeling of emergence, this feeling of shift, the feeling of change. And the interesting thing about it is that we're not a one growth flower, right? We are continuously moving up through new and new layers. And so there's this feeling of, there has to be this time of focus. This is the respiration. How do we respirate this process, right? There has to be this time of focus where we pull all of our focus in, we pull all of our intention in, we pull all of our energy and our movement and motion into this breaking through, this piercing the veil, this getting on through to the other side energy, right? But once we get there, we don't want to just keep going up. I mean, ultimately we do, right? But this sprout does sort of this motion, right? It's sort of a waving motion. And so what Spirit's saying is, let's break through to the other side. And that's that transcendence energy, right? That's that divine masculine energy. I'm going to transcend this reality into a new reality. Once we get there, we want to really embody the divine feminine. And so much in our world right now is all about us coming into a balanced and fair place with the divine masculine and divine feminine. And that's not just outside in our societies and in our culture and in our families, but that's really inside of us too. We are each a representation of divine masculine and divine feminine. So once we break through and transcend that veil and get into this new arena, then how do we embody that divine feminine and really explore and soften into that place? It's like respirating our vision, which is actually an exercise I really enjoy offering to myself and others, which is to take a moment to like really just take this moment now to really focus in on something. Look at something in your wall or in your room and just really, really zero in on it. That's that divine masculine transcendence energy. You're trying to really look at something and almost go through what you're looking at. And then we go to soften in the vision. So then we soften out and we become aware of everything. We become aware of our peripheral vision. We become aware of color and shape and movement and light and dark. And we allow our imagination to just kind of waterily wave through these different aspects of our environment. And then we can bring our focus back in, right? And so that is basically this process that Spirit's talking about of expansion and contraction, respiration, the in-breath, the out-breath, right? So that's one thing that is mentioned. The other thing is this truth piece, which if you watched the Golden Nugget from last week, we talked a little bit about this truth piece. And the truth is that I think what we're finding right now, and I'm finding this in my client work, I'm finding this in doing the conversation series, Stories of Awakening, which is a super fun monthly conversation series where I do about an hour interview conversation with a person who is a change maker, a transformational leader, an artist, a creative, someone in the community that's doing really amazing work. We pair together for a full month of cross-pollination and just, you know, me sharing their work with my community and them sharing my work with their community, but us also like pinpointing on the 15th, releasing this video, this 1 hour video that's just a really juicy conversation. And the point of it is to explore our true stories. Like this is our actual true story of like, who were we? And in particular, who is this person that's coming to be this conversation partner? Who were they as children? Who are they growing into? What have been the weird and amazing and totally out of the box things that have happened to them that have taken them in a new trajectory? And then how does that impact the way they envision their future? And what I'm finding is, and I think it's surprising, is that people don't always share their true story. We share an edited version of ourselves, right? And I think that those of us, I mean, I remember coming to this place as a child with my parents. Like, I knew how to edit my story in a way that was most digestible, the smoothest to swallow, right? So we sort of file down the rough edges. We file down the truths that maybe wouldn't be so acceptable, that maybe we would get punished for, or maybe we would be ridiculed for by our friends. We learn to edit ourselves, right? We also learn to embellish things that, maybe make no sense to embellish, right? We embellish who we are, where we came from, or who our parents are, what our culture is. We embellish all sorts of things, what happened to us, right, to make it more sensational. We think we need to do this to make a good story happen. But the truth is that we're finding that if people really just tell their true story, the whole true story as far as they know it, the truth for them of what they experienced, and we learn to really listen, to really take this in. It's amazing. It's amazing how transformative that can be. And I hear people all the time say, well, I didn't tell my true story because I thought no one would relate to it. It's so specific. It's so me. It's so these very weird things that happen to me in my life. But what we're finding is, no, the human story and all of its intricacies and all of its difference and all of its specificity and truth, if it is a true story, we automatically relate to it. Even if it's a fictional true story that we read, if there's enough truth in it, if the author has poured enough truth into that story, we relate to it. We feel that we are that person, that we understand what that person is going through. And that's the telling of a really good story. And so the truth is, not to overuse that word, but the truth is we all have a really good story that we're carrying with us because we've all lived a human life. And human lives are just full, chock full of really good stories. My very old dog is asking to be invited to the conversation. Come on, girl, come on. She needs a lot of encouragement. Okay, come on. All right, here she is. This is the dog butt, the dog face, the dog laying. Okay, now we can continue. So tell your true story. Tell your true story. Feel no need to embellish it. Feel no need to edit it out so that it's more digestible. Tell a true story because it encourages us to feel our true stories. And the last thing I'll say about that is that I led a sacred circle the other day. It was a foundations class is what I call it. And so teaching people how to engage in ritual in their daily life, how to even see that they're having ritual in their daily life, and then to work on just building a sacred space and understanding a connection with the elements and directions and creating that sacred space. We always do a talk at the beginning of Circle about what it means to listen and what it means to share, why we share. We share our stories not to affirm our stories, not to reiterate them to ourselves, not to cement in our sense of identity. We share them to give them up, to give them away. We share our stories so that our stories become part of the greater web of human experience. They're no longer ours. They are the stories that have been put into the center of the circle for all to witness. Now, equally and even more importantly is the point of the listener. The instruction for the listeners within a sacred circle is to hold the space, is to pretend that their arms are Gumby arms and they can stretch all the way around the circle and hold the back heart of the person who's speaking and simply witness. Our job as a listener is not to solve anyone's problems. Our job as a listener is not to judge their choices. Our job as the listener is not to have our own commentary on our own opinions that affirm our own viewpoint. It is simply just to hold the space steady and witness what this person is saying. It's also not to think about what we're going to say in response or how our own story is going to affect other people. We just have to trust that when it's our time to talk, that we'll know what to say and that what we say will benefit us and others, right? So I was giving this instruction and I brought a bunch of hankies. In my family, we don't use tissues, we use hankies. I make these like flannel, I'll show you an example, little flannel hanky type things. And I happened to have brought a few. Turns out I brought just enough for each person in the group. And I was really happy I set them out because I looked around the circle and with the simple instruction of how to share our stories and why we share our stories and how to listen, every single person in that circle was crying. Because it's that important, right? It's what we yearn for so much, is just to be seen, is just to be understood, is just to be heard, and to have no one putting any of their own shit on top of what we're saying and what we're expressing and how we're sharing. We just want to be free to share, right? So I think that in this reading that I did, that is, it's not a huge part of it, but it is a part of it. It is a part of as we go through this process of emergence, as we break through from one level to the next level to the next level, and we explore these spaces, then how do we share that story? How do we bring it back home? How do we allow it to benefit the wheel of humanity? Because we're in a time where we really need everyone to contribute as much as they can in a way that is right for them into the greater wheel of humanity, as we're all going through these major shifts and changes in our own way. So how do we bring that back home to the people we love? Yes, and the commitment to the present moment. So that's the last thing I will say, is that it's about the stretching, but it's about how this curiosity brings us into the present moment and how we can really inhabit the present moment. That's something that we all could use some practice at, I think. And it's hard when we're having a lot of emotions for that not to draw us into the past or into the future or into our discomfort too much, but to allow the experience of discomfort to travel through us, and then to come back into the present moment. And if we can, to come back to a state of appreciation, what we call a coherent state, right? A state of appreciation, a state where you can actually give thanks for the water that you're drinking, or the food that's on your table, or the family that is living that you get to hug and hold and see, right? So how do we come back to a coherent place, and how does that affect our present moment? Alrighty. Lastly, but not leastly, is our card. So interestingly, we pulled a card from an animal deck called Animal Spirit Knowledge Cards by, the art's all by Susan Eleanor Boulay, who is a fabulous artist. And I just love how intricate, let's see, every week, I can't find the opposite lens of the camera. Okay, this artist does amazingly intricate work. And so you're not even gonna be able to probably see all the detail here in this card, but her creatures and her beings are always super expressive, and there's lots of hidden images in there. The lion, you know, I never super resonate with the writing on the back. It's written by someone else. And I always find it kind of, you know, how much can you really write in the back of a card, right? But I did my own sort of like channeled reading on what the lion brings and why it brings it. And the card does discuss a little bit about the sort of medicine shield or mandala or the 4 sacred winds that are indicated. So you sort of see these compass points, the 4 points, 4 directions. So indicating the 4 winds, indicating the 4 elements. And it does quote on the very back, on the very bottom of the back, that Carl Jung talked about the circular mandala with the 4 points as circumscribing a holy place. So that is no big news to me, who I'm someone who uses the 4 directions and elements as a way to create sacred space. But I thought it was very interesting that even in the mandala, even in more of an Eastern perspective, that is, this is a universal symbol, right? So we're talking about the medicine of lion. And what came to me was that lion is about that balance between rest and action. You know, we've all seen the lions, you know, the videos of the lions, or the lions at the zoo, they're just like resting most of the time. But we also know lions are a very effective predator. And I think that, you know, we don't like to think about predation as humans. We have a lot of judgments about it, but the predator is someone who keeps the planet healthy, right? Everything, all of life is giving to all of life all the time. This is just truth. We are being given oxygen by the plant life. We are being given food from the earth. No matter what food we're eating, it's a gift to us. It's a sacrifice of life that's coming into us to sustain our lives. We are being given water to drink from the clouds that carry the water from the oceans to the land. We are being given light and energy and warmth from the sun and from shelter and from all the trees that we have to fell to build our houses. And we're being given by life all the time. All of life is. This is how life works. And so whatever your beliefs about meat eating or not meat eating are, the truth is that predators keep ecosystems healthy. And so death translates into life. And so for this creature, you know, we're talking, and this is very appropriate for the season, right? Death is coming into life. All of the death, all the dormancy, all of the decay that happened in the fall and the winter is now giving birth to new life that is springing forth in this upcoming spring. And again, that's the energy that's flowing through our body. So there's that aspect of the predator. And also, you know, lion symbolizes family and tribe. It symbolizes strength and nobility and courage. And it's a really interesting balance of male-female energy as well, right? Because we generally think in our culture, in our species, we think of men as the hunter-gatherers or the hunters, and the women as the gatherers or the child rearers. But in lion societies, it's kind of the opposite. The women work as a collaboration to do the hunting, and the males stay back and watch the babies. The males do a lot more resting and a lot more keeping the peace. So they have an interesting sort of gender breakdown in the lion families. But family, again, is really important. And I think that we all, that is something that has kind of popped in a few times in this reading, is how significant it is whether or not we can include our family in our emergence process, how safe we feel doing that, and also how challenging family can be. Family is at the base our most challenging. They're our most intimate relationships. They're our most inescapable connections. They are the foundations of where we come from and why we are the way we are, and the healing that we're carrying forward on their behalf, right? So we learn so much from our families, and it is so challenging, but maybe they might be the most important people to share this process with in some way or another, at least to share the effects of the process of emergence, the process of awakening with our family, because they're the people that mean the most to us and the people that are closest to us. So maybe Lion is bringing a little of that energy as well. Well, I think that is what I have for you guys. I think take the nobility and the strength of Lion forward and address in your own life how this process of emergence through the soil, how your head peeking up over the crust of the earth and reaching towards the light is happening right now in your life, and how you are emotionally, physically feeling about that. You might be having bursts of energy and bursts of, I need to lay down and take a nap energy, and that's okay. So drink lots of water, take care of yourself, and again, always, always so much gratitude for you and who you are and what you bring to this planet at this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week on Thursday on Equinox for our weekly Golden Nugget. Bye.